Rene Saguisag. Renito Augusto Verceluz Saguisag, born August 14, 1939 in Mauban, Quezon, Philippines, is a Filipino lawyer and politician. He served as a Filipino Senator from 1987 until 1992. Early life. Rene Saguisag was born on August 14, 1939 in Mauban, Quezon, Philippines to Antonio Lozada Saguisag Sr., an engineering graduate from the National University and UCB Novatura, whom Rene described as a Spanish-looking mestiza housewife. The couple had 7 children, including 1 daughter. They were Antonio, Renito or Rene, who was second, Leonidas or Idas, Prestosa, who was named after Prestosa Palma, Lourdes, who was the only daughter, Rogelio or Roger, and Romy, who was born in Pasig, finished at the University of the Philippines in chemistry, but due to a congenital defect passed away in 2010. Saguisag is also the nephew of Sen. Javito R. Salonga. Specifically, Salonga is the second cousin once removed of Saguisag, as Saguisag's paternal grandmother Talia Saguisag is the first cousin of Salonga's mother Dinang Reyes. Saguisag grew up in Pasig, Rizal and attended elementary school at Makati Elementary School, quickly accelerated to the 2nd grade in a few weeks, and graduated in 1951 instead of 1952. He graduated from Rizal High School in 1955, which led Saguisag to claim because he finished basic schooling in 9 years the K-Ministerial program is inconsequential for the Philippine education system. He developed a strong interest in chess and skipped class at the expense of his teachers, who promoted corporal punishment even if he was a consistent honor student. Saguisag went on to graduate with a Bachelor of Arts degree in 1959 from San Beda College with honor-level grades, taking 1 semester studying one of his favorite subjects, Spanish, at the University of the East to complete requirements. He also later graduated cum laude from San Beda College with a Bachelor of Laws degree in 1963 and placed 6th in the same year as bar examinations. In order to make ends meet, Saguisag worked as a checker, laborer, construction site guard, and messenger from 1959 to 1962. Saguisag then had to choose to study in Spain at the University of Navarra, or the University of Michigan, where he taught the competition for scholarships. However, he was accepted into Harvard after sending a letter in what he called a rinky-dink typewriter where Lolandag angan siya keys the keys would fall off. Saguisag eventually entered Harvard and obtained his Master of Laws degree from Harvard Law School in 1968. He first worked in private companies in the United States, including a San Francisco law firm as training grounds. It was here where he befriended client Joe McMicking, who developed the city of Makati on behalf of IAL Corporation. Saguisag then started out his Philippine career as a student researcher, then associate, and eventually part-time member of Ledesma, Gatingco, Velasco, and Saguisag from 1962 to 1972. He became a member of the San Beda Law Faculty Assistant Dean 1971–1972 from 1961 to 1972, and eventually returned to teach political law and other related subjects after martial law. Rene Saguisag then practiced law as a prominent human rights lawyer in the Philippines from 1972 to 1986 when martial law brought about multiple human rights abuses. He was among the opposition figures targeted for arrest by President Ferdinand Marcos's administration upon the declaration of martial law in September 1972, and he spent several months in jail without being charged of a crime. Upon his release from prison, he joined the Free Legal Assistance Group or FLAG, an organization founded in late 1974 by fellow oppositionists and principal litigation mentors in Saguisag's young career, FLAG chairman Sen. Jose W. Diopno and former Sen. Lorenzo M. Tada. One of the FLAG cases Saguisag handled was to prosecute the Manero brothers who killed Fr. Talio Favoli. Later, some FLAG lawyers, including Saguisag and other prominent human rights jurists, started the movement of attorneys for brotherhood, integrity, and nationalism or Mabini in 1980 with former Senator Tada, future Senator Joker Arroyo, future Labor Secretary Augusto Bobit Sanchez, and others. Their cases became landmark Supreme Court decisions, including Oliga v. Military Commission No. 34, 150/144 1987. Presidential spokesperson. After the 1986 EDSA revolution, he served as the spokesman for then President-elect Corazon Aquino or Cory beginning on January 22, 1986. According to Saguisag, Cory Aquino would often groom him to run for the Senate and eventually teased him to become her successor. Eventually, Saguisag decided to run for senator in the first constitutional election held in 1987. Philippine Senate. Saguisag ran for the Senate of the Philippines under the Liberal Party in 1987, promising during the campaign that he would only run for one term. He won the election, placing 9th out of 24 winning positions. This earned him a 6-year term along with the other top 12 senatorial winners, and he stayed in the Senate until the end of his promised one term in 1992. As a senator, Saguisag served as chairman of the Committee on Ethics and Privileges. He also served on the ad hoc committee on the Batan nuclear power plant. He was the co-author with his uncle, Chavito Salonga, of the Code of Conduct and Ethical Standards for Public Officials and Employees, or at 6713, the main author of the Ombudsman Act of 1989, or at 6770, and was one of the 12 senators who voted against the extension of the U.S. military bases treaty in 1991. Saguisag was one of only 2 Filipino senators who attended all 415 session days from July 1987 to June 1990, with the other being Ernesto Masita. Saguisag was frequently commuting through a taxi and bringing his own lunch instead of catering offered from the taxpayers. Saguisag mainly wanted to retire from the Senate early due to the excesses of corruption around the political arena. His experience not having to pay a centavo to win the election came due to the high tide of trust in the new Aquino government. However, it slowly devolved into campaigning mixed with show business, thus prompting more actors and entertainers to become senators. Post-Senate career. Following his departure from the Senate, right after the Philippine Centennial celebration, Saguisag was appointed by Joseph Estrada to head the Ad Hoc and Independent Citizens Committee ACT with members Adi Francis Pangilinan and Anchor Forello Estor Yusik, Antonio M. Laurent and Corazon de la Paz. ACT was created by President Estrada on February 24, 1999 through Administrative Order No. 53 to investigate if there were irregularities that transpired during the preparations and celebrations of the Philippine Centennial Anniversary. ACT found that the bidding for certain centennial projects had been rigged, that certain documents used in the bidding had been falsified, and that certain signatures on documents were forged. Saguisag became one of the leading defense lawyers in the corruption trial of former President Estrada. At this point, Saguisag's law firm, the Rene Saguisag Law Office, became a prominent law firm, and many prominent lawyers worked under Saguisag, such as former Napolcor President Cyril Del Cala. Saguisag remained focused on his law firm and on teaching human rights and the rule of law. He continued to make appearances and discuss the political situation in news shows and articles. Current activities. Adi Saguisag is currently a columnist for the Manila Times with his column entitled TGIF, and is still actively teaching constitutional law and human rights law at San Beda Mendiola and San Beda Alaban. He has also written for the Philippine Daily Inquirer and other newspapers. Saguisag has also not stopped his work on human rights, and has filed cases against the Anti-Terror Law of 2020 and the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement EDCA Treaty under President Benigno Aquino Roman III. Saguisag has not been shy of criticizing any politician, including Cory Aquino's son Pres Aquino Roman III, due to Saguisag's argument that EDCA is a formal treaty that needs Senate ratification, and not a shallow agreement that the president can make binding by his word of mouth as signature to an agreement. Saguisag has also written some popular books, including Saguisag Wit 1 and Saguisag Wit 2. In the books he discussed about his life lessons and his opinion on the people he worked with, including his friend, the late Senator Joker Arroyo. Saguisag still frequently makes appearances to give his review and criticism of the modern administrations, including their policies such as the war on drugs of ex-Pres Rodrigo Duterte and the disinformation spread by the political dynasty of Imelda Marcos, the wife of former dictator Marcos. The disinformation campaign is being used to promote fabricated lies and boost the appeal of the Bongbong Marcos administration. An instance of Saguisag's commentary was when he critiqued the burial of Marcos' sister at the Libingan Nga Bayani and stated that the Supreme Court's decision to allow the burial, since there are no laws disallowing it, was absurd. He stated that Marcos' name may also be engraved at the Martial Law Memorial, the Banteog Nga Bayani, if common sense is removed from the minds of the judges. Personal life. Rene Saguisag married Dulce M. Quintans, who was a former secretary of the Department of Social Welfare and Development under Pres. Estrada in Manila on deck, 27, 1970. They first met in 1968 during his days at Harvard. Rene eventually proposed, saying, "I'm poor, I come from a very poor family, I have no money, and I have no belongings, so I don't want to marry a rich girl, so tell me now, are you rich?" She replied no, to which Rene proposed and then told Mrs. Quintans, his eventual mother-in-law, that he promised to love and care for her daughter for the rest of his life. Dulce, however, came from a notable political family, being a descendant of Senator Daniel Maramba, who was also the governor of Pangasinan. The couple then had 5 children: Rene Andre Jr. Arabo, Nanay, Laura, Lawrence, and Kaisa. Rene's grandchildren include Rene Roman III, who is about 70 years younger. On November 8, 2007, Saguisag was seriously injured in a car crash in Makati. After leaving from one of the usual late-night ballroom dancing sessions, Saguisag and his wife were in the van when a speeding dump truck beating the red light accidentally struck their van in the middle of the highway located at NR 4043 Bigasan Street in Palanan, Makati. His driver was injured and his ribs were broken, while Dulce's life was taken. The funeral was held at St. Scholastica's College by Benedictine priests, including Saguisag's cousin Dom Benildes Mamba. Saguisag was left in critical condition following the collision. His injuries included 7 broken ribs and small blood clots in his brain. However, his doctors stated that he had a very good chance of a full recovery. He spent 20 days in the intensive care unit without being informed of his wife's passing by friend Jerker Arroyo, and was released from the hospital on December 8, 2007. Rene and Dulce's youngest daughter, Kaisa Saguisag, is a gymnast, but a knee injury ended her quest for gold at the 24th Southeast Asian Games. Their son Robert is also a lawyer who is the executive director and former commissioner of the University Athletic Association of the Philippines and the city councilor of Makati. Robert also joined Mabini. According to Saguisag, FLAG pursued a policy of recruiting young lawyers, while Mabini has become an old law firm, which also includes Mayor Abby Binay, whose father Jejoma Binay was vice president. Saguisag claimed that Mabini has become more Mabini or biased for the Binay dynasty. However, they continue to maintain their friendship from their time at FLAG and Mabini. In fact, since the end of Binay's term as vice president, both have spoken out against the red tagging from ex-President Duda and his generals, including Antonio Palade. Though he did not vote for former President Joseph Estrada, implying he was a substandard president, his wife Dulce worked for Estrada, and Saguisag, like many, was completely aghast by the second EDSA revolution because it stood against constitutional procedures and devolved into a mob rule. In terms of personal beliefs, Saguisag always maintained a strong faith as a practicing Catholic. Awards: Lifetime Achievement Awardee, Integrated Bar of the Philippines 2001, Badan of the Century, San Baday University 2001, Benigno South. Aquino Jr. Award for Nationalism, Federation of Catholic Schools Alumni Associations FICASO, 2007, Outstanding Golden Jubilarian, San Baday College of Law Class of 1963, November 2013.